Hey guys, welcome back to DIY guitar making. It is an absolutely beautiful day here at the shop. It is close to 60 degrees outside and it's February. I'm wearing a t-shirt. That's awesome. So that alone makes me very excited. But what also makes me excited is what we're working on, which I talked about a little bit in my previous videos. I'm building two Parlor guitars, and so today I'm going to work on the other half of this mold here. So basically you can see what I've done with this here, and I'm going to make the other half of it so it will look more like this. Now this is an OM mold, orchestra model, that I already have. I just need to build a much smaller size mold for my Parlor guitars. And actually I'm going to build two molds because I'm building two Parlor guitars, and also whenever I build molds, sometimes I like to build extra molds, especially if it's a design or a model that I want to be able to do more of in the future. It's just a good idea while you're at this sort of jig making stage to do a little bit of the extra work to be able to efficiently produce those guitars. Do it now while you're in the jig making stage and not have to worry about it again in the future. So that's where I'm at right now. As per the sort of tradition that we recently started here, I'm going to answer your questions. I've only been doing it in the last couple videos, but I think it's going to become a tradition because I really like doing it, and it seems like you guys like it as well, so it's a win. All right, let's see what we've got here. Russell Scott writes, bizarrely, I just bought a piece of Ovencall. So he's talking about, in the last video, I basically randomly picked Ovencall, like drawing it out of a hat, for the wood that I'm going to use for the Parlor guitars. Although I didn't say I was going to use it for sure. Bizarrely, I just bought a piece of Ovencall 2 days ago as I thought it might work great for a fretboard and looks very nice. It is also very reasonably priced. That's good to know because actually I wasn't sure how much that was going to be. Never heard of it before. Will be very interested to see how the Parlor and Ovencall works out. Alright, so I think I'm slowly and subtly becoming more committed to the Ovencall, even though I was kind of joking about using it. But I mean, the more I think about it, actually, I did look into it a little bit. Looks like a wonderful wood. I probably will end up going with the Ovencall. But I truly did pick that out of a hat. Totally random. Thomas Tommy writes, awesome video, thanks for sharing. Will you sell these guitars? He's talking about the two Parlor guitars. If you do, what will you charge for them? I don't know that yet. My starting price for anything is $5,000, so it would be somewhere between $5,000 and, honestly, for these guitars, because the one thing I do know is because I'm testing out those two bracing patterns, I want to keep everything else pretty simple. I'm not going to do wild purfling schemes or anything like that. In fact, I'm probably not going to do purfling at all and just have a binding, ebony binding or something like that around the edges. So it'll probably be pretty close to that base price, actually. But I don't know. It's too early. Viking Beard writes, Roger Hagstrom, resto modded. I should explain these before I just start reading them. In the last video, I had mentioned the video about these Parlor guitars, that it was inspired by an article by Roger Hagstrom, and Roger works on, he restores and modifies very old and inexpensive instruments, and particularly Parlor guitars. And I picked this comment to read because this is actually someone who has had their Parlor guitar resto modded by Roger himself. So I thought this was just cool. Roger Hagstrom resto modded my old Levin Parlor with new ladder bracing. It sounds amazing. I suggest you also check out his other ideas / innovations to improve the sound. I will, Viking Beard, check that out for sure. Thank you for that. That was not a question, but a comment, and I just wanted to share that because it's cool. Now here's another. I don't think I have many questions today. They're all just you guys giving great comments. This one's long, and it's a really good comment. Some really good information from a dental surgeon himself about dental tools used in lutherie. And this is a comment on the last video where I showed the that whistling sound is my wood stove, by the way, in case you're wondering. I put a pot of water on the wood stove, and so the water will boil, which adds some needed moisture back into the room, and that pot is whistling right now. So let me just read this comment. It's great. Great video as usual. Good work. As a dental surgeon and hobby acoustic guitar builder, I've made use of old dental instruments many times. As it relates to inlay work, I'd advise 2 to 3 things in addition to your armamentarium. That's a good word. Number 1, a straight chisel and a back action chisel. Surgical, not restorative chisels. And number 2, a used dental handpiece. Drill, electric, not air turbine. Both on the list make for very precise inlay pockets, and used with dental burrs make very precise angles on shell that is being inlaid. Remember, these instruments are specifically used every day for creating very tiny, very precise inlays in enamel in very tiny teeth. That said, if you want to take your inlay work to the next level, that is one of the many ways to do it. For the record, as an aside, dental instruments bought from the major dental suppliers are ludicrously expensive. Make sure you look for sterile, used instruments. I like that piece of advice right there. Used instruments. Sterile is also good. Dental chisels can be sharpened like any other chisel. Okay, that's the end of his comment. That's great. I don't really have anything to add to that, actually, because I think he covered it all right there. Basically, look for sterile used equipment, hand pieces. So it's kind of like a Dremel, but without the larger base. And normally at the dental office, you see the line for it going up to the ceiling. That's a great idea. And the straight chisel and back action chisel, which I'm assuming are he's describing something you would find in a dentist catalog. So yeah, check that out, guys. I'm gonna take a look at what he's talking about here as well, because I think those are all great points. Oh, I have more. Hey Eric, where did you get those radius measuring tools? Okay, it's from a specific video, and I know what he's talking about. I have one right here. These are called contour gauges. So if you look up a contour gauge, it's always good to know what it's called, and then you can find it on numerous sites. This one, and the ones that I get, are from LMI. By the way, I just want to mention before we get started here that we're not going to have enough time here today. I actually have to leave early for something to actually finish these molds. So what we're not going to see is any of what you see here with the latch clamp that's holding this together, and drilling for these dowels right here. We're just basically going to be getting the shape, and I'm going to be showing how to duplicate that shape on the router table so that you can have a nice chunky piece like this. But if you do want to see the full process for making a mold, I do teach jig making and mold making and all that stuff in the beginning through several videos of my online course, Building an OM Acoustic. So not only will you see more of how to do this kind of stuff, but also of course, all the steps for building an acoustic guitar in excruciating detail. Okay, now let's get to it. Alright, so I'm going to start here at the spindle sander. I have my largest spindle on here so that I can be the most efficient in removing all this material. There's quite a bit of material there. And yeah, not much to it. Let's do it. I should mention the goal here, by the way, is simply to get as close to my template piece as humanly possible without actually hitting it and altering it, so that when we take this to the router table, there will be just a hair of MDF that router bit actually has to engage with. Because router bits don't do well when you just jam a whole bunch of wood up against it. That's not what they're designed for. So we want to minimize the amount of wood that actually has to be eaten away by the router bit. Okay, so I've used the spindle sander to bring the inside edge really close to the template. Now I could keep using the spindle sander to bring the outside edges close to the template as well. However, straight edges and outside edges, it's much easier to do that on something like a disc sander, or even better, the edge sander right here. It's just a lot quicker. Again, you can do it on the spindle sander, it's just going to take more time. So let's go ahead and do that. So I'm going to use the disc sander and the edge sander. First you'll see me do this part over here. Move this out of the way. All right, so here we are. You are now sitting on the router table right here. So you'll have a nice good view of it. And what I have here poking up out of my router table is a flush trim helical spiral. I'm not sure if it's correct to call it helical or spiral. It's one of those. Bit. So the spiral just means that instead of having a straight cut bit where you have these two knife edges that basically just whack into the wood all at once, that spiral shape means that the full length of that cutting edge is not hitting the wood all at once, which is a little bit, you're asking kind of a lot of that cutting edge all at once. That spiral shape allows the amount of the length of cutting edge that's actually hitting it is much smaller at any given moment, so it's just less cantankerous. Okay, and of course this flush bearing here is going to ride on our template piece and give us this exact shape. So let's go ahead and do that. This is going to be nice and dusty. I don't have any dust collection hooked up to this currently at the moment, which I've explained that situation in the previous video, so I'm not going to go into that. Alright, dust mask on. Now we're going to go ahead and separate the piece that we stuck on with double stick tape. So all these other pieces, by the way, those are glued together. So those are permanently attached. We use the double stick tape on this one because we wanted to temporarily attach this just to get our shape exact. So you can always use heat this up with a heating element or on anything that's hot. I have a little portable stove that I'll heat this up with, but often it's not necessary, so we'll see if I can do without it. If I need to resort to heat to get this off, then I will. It's kind of a good sign when you need to resort to heat, actually, because it just means that your double stick tape is really doing its job and sticking well. But this is going to come off without heat, I can tell. There we go. Alright. It's good to get this double stick tape off fairly quick and not to just let this sit around for a couple hours like this, because the double stick tape becomes much harder to remove then. Okay, beautiful. So that is what our parlor guitar is going to look like. We have a nice symmetrical shape now because we duplicated it on our original piece. Alright, so here I have our next piece of MDF. This I can just put aside. We actually don't need this anymore because we have this. And now, instead of sticking this down with double stick tape, we are going to actually glue this on because this is going to become our stack of 3. Before I glue this on though, let's just cut away all this excess. So now we are kind of back to where we started, except that now instead of sticking this down to our rough cut piece with double stick tape, we're going to permanently glue it down. You know what, my glue bottle's all gummed up, but that's okay. I can just open it up like this, and we can actually be pretty messy, pretty heavy with the glue. Oop, not that heavy.
If you learned something here, please give this video a like and subscribe so you can be notified when I release a new DIY guitar making video. And if you want to really learn more, take one of my structured online courses at ericschaferguitars.com or register for a hands-on guitar building workshop here with me in Burnville, Pennsylvania.